Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in. This is going to be such a fun class. I love this time of year. My gardening zone is Garden 7B, so which is amazing to me that it covers very much across the entire United States, all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. I always think of where I am as, how could I possibly have the same weather as somebody in Washington State? But there is a band that goes across. So if you're getting started gardening, if you're a seasoned gardener or just getting started, you may already know your zone, and the zone helps you decide when to start planting things and when to plant things inside. So some of you may have already started planting outside and you're getting things going in your garden. And some of you may be like me, where I'm working on my indoor plants until I can do my direct sow plants. So I have a couple projects to share with you today. One of them is setting up a page in Silhouette Design Studio to create labels for all of your plants. I have, as my little plants are getting started, I have some here. These are my banana peppers, and eventually I will transplant those into a bigger container like this, and then into my garden. Right now, I'm able to tell what they are because I have a little sticky note here, but I am a little bit nervous. I'm going to lose my sticky note, but I don't have something deep enough yet to put this in. So I'm very excited to transplant them into this container and use my sign, and then take this sign outside as I plant all my different vegetables and my herbs and everything into my garden. I will use these plant signs. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, you know what, that's great. I can just use a Sharpie and write on here. Why do I need to do something else? So this way I can use my plant stakes year after year. So if you're using permanent vinyl, you can leave these outside all season long. You can even leave them through the winter until next year. And then just all you have to do is clean off the dirt and they're ready to go again. I have labeled things with a Sharpie before, and that Sharpie has faded for me over the summer. So I lose what I planted. So I don't, I like to do something that's a little bit more permanent. And before we get started on the software and everything, I say permanent. These bins, obviously you can see I did these for my daughter's graduation in 2022. They stay outside throughout the entire season, the planting season, and then I'm too lazy to bring them in the winter. And
We're losing your audio here and there, Kesley. I'll switch over to your work desk, but
okay,
you're cutting
I
out.
think I should be back now. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, great. All right. And okay, so these containers, I have put these outside, and my vinyl has stayed on the container throughout the last, 3 years, inside, outside. I really, if I bring these inside, it's at the beginning of the season. Sorry, at the end of the season. This pile, though, had been outside all year. You can see how dirty they are. I'm afraid there might be some spiders in here. But when you use your permanent vinyl, it really does last. So I wanted to show you that, and get you excited about using your permanent vinyl to create however you're going to create. So why don't we go ahead and I'll open my Silhouette Studio. I'll share my screen and show you how to set up your labels to print them out. Come on over here and I will share my screen. Okay, here we go. All right. So the first thing you're going to want to do is measure your garden stake. So no matter what type of garden stake you're using, you'll want to measure your stake. Now, my stakes I got at the end of the last season, so they were on sale because I knew I wanted to update my garden stakes. So just go into your local hardware store or your local garden shop and ask them if they have any garden stakes, and go ahead and measure this. Now, mine is 1.5 inches tall by 2 inches wide. So when you come in, you'll start a new canvas here. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw out my rectangle so that I know how big my letters can be. Different types of vegetables or herbs, you'll have different size letters. Like hot peppers will be a smaller font than, say, basil. But if you have your box, then you'll know how big it can be. So I measured mine previously. I forgot my measurements. I think it was 2.5 by well, really though, I did 1.25 because it's got like a little arch on there. So we're going to go ahead and open up our lock there. So our proportions are not locked, and I can change my width to 2.5 and my height to 1.25. So now I have, oops, don't need that. Now I have a box that represents my garden sign. Once you have that on there, it just helps you visualize how you're going to do your different signs. So then come on over on the left panel here and grab that A. This is your font cursor. So I have like cherry tomatoes. So I need a sign for my cherry tomatoes. And you can see this is left justified here. So I want to go ahead and select both of my rows and center those. So I just go up to the top and I'm going to center my words there. Now, obviously, this is a bit bigger than my rectangle, so I'm going to have to shrink it down. One way I can do this is by selecting the font size on the top bar here. But since I have my box, I'm actually going to just eyeball it and bring it in using the carriers on the side there. So we'll just bring this right in, grab your little cursor and shrink it down a little bit. All right, so now I can see that that's going to be right in the center of my rectangle, but it's not quite centered, right? It's a little bit off to the left or the right. What you'll want to do is select both layers, so the words and your rectangle, and at your top toolbar, select that arrow center. So go ahead and center it, and that centers it on my page. Now I can group these together, or I can keep them separate. If you group them together, you just right click on those layers and say group. And then that way I can move those around my canvas together. But let's say, for example, you want to copy this and paste it, because not only do you have cherry tomatoes, but maybe you have, trying to think of my other tomatoes. I have heirloom tomatoes, I think, and slicing tomatoes. So if I wanted to change this to be slicing, I can't click on that font and change that while these are grouped together. So then I'm just going to go back in and ungroup those. And then I can just click on where it says cherry and change that to, say, slicing tomatoes. I don't know if that's actually what they're called, but I know which tomatoes I have that are perfect for sandwich slices. So I could, have those tomatoes. And then I think another kind of tomato I have is a Roma tomato. So I'm just going to copy and paste that one more time and change that one to a Roma tomato, say. Oops. Let me come on in here. Now, I did try and pick a font that allowed me to kind of go as big as I could, and still make it legible. So my font style, it's not fancy. It's just a kind of basic font style. And I don't know, should I say tomatoes or tomato? What's the proper way? I think I like tomatoes because I have more than one plant. So we'll group these together again, and I'll group these together. And then you would just keep doing this for all of your different vegetables that you're going to be planting and all of your different herbs. If you wanted to color code it, let's say obviously tomatoes are going to be red, and I want to do cucumbers, which would be green. You know, you have your pickling cucumbers, your sweet cucumbers, all different kinds of cucumbers. And peppers, you may, go for like a darker red for your peppers. So you may decide to do multiple files that would be in different colors. Since these are kind of all scrambled around my page, I'm going to select all three of these labels here, and we're going to right center them. And this, I love this tool. We're going to space them vertically. So this means I have just the right amount of space between each layer. And that gives me room to work my transfer tape on my different little boxes there that I'll make. So that's all I have to do my signs, and then I'm ready to send that over to my cutter. Once I have it sent over to my cutter, I want to make sure that I have the right type of material selected. So I just choose the vinyl glossy. If it's a material that I haven't used before, I would want to run a test cut, but I've used the vinyl glossy before, so I know my test cuts are good. And then as soon as I'm ready, I'm going to send that over to my machine. And I just realized I don't have my cherry red vinyl handy. So let me just go grab some red vinyl here. Yeah, this will be nice. Okay, sorry about that. So I just have some red vinyl, and you can use any of the vinyls that are available at Michael's. I happen to have Cricut permanent vinyl, and it's a glossy vinyl. You do, if it's going to be outside, like especially if it's going to be in your garden, you want to make sure that you're using a permanent vinyl. So don't use the removable vinyl if it's going in your garden. Now, I did mention that I use those planters for more than, I have 3 kids, they've all graduated, so they've all used the same planters. With my X-Acto knife, I was able to peel up my permanent vinyl and reuse the planters for each of the kids, but I used permanent vinyl each time because I didn't want to have it peel off mid-season or mid-party or anything like that. So we just kept it on there until I was ready to peel it off. And one graduated in 2018 and one in 2019. So I was able to just peel off the 8 and replace it with a 9. So permanent vinyl means that it won't fade outdoors. It's resistant to water and everything like that. But you can, work it off if you need to. But if you're doing something interior wise, let's say you're doing some sort of home decor, or you're doing something that you're going to want to change frequently, then you might want to use your removable vinyl. So just know that those are 2 different vinyls that are available. I've gone ahead and taken off my blue carrier sheet that keeps my mat nice and fresh and ready to cut. And I'm going to just place my vinyl on my mat with the material side up. So we'll just pop that right down here. I like to line that right up as best I can. We'll pop that right on. And then I use my rolling pin here, and I make sure everything is nice and sturdy on my mat. You really want to make sure that what you have on there is going to stick so it doesn't slide around while it's cutting. So I've got my vinyl glossy ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and load this into my Cameo, which is the machine I'm using today. And it's been very noisy, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I don't know if it's just the, oops, there we go. So we're going to load that in. I don't know why she's being noisy when she cuts, but she sure is. And then I'll just go into my software and hit send. And this is going to send this over to my machine and cut this out. And it does a beautiful job. So it'll be all pretty. And while that's working its way through, why don't I take us over and I can show you how to weave your design. I've got some black ones that I've already cut out, and we'll kind of go through the process here of weeding and using transfer tape. So once you have your design cut out on your machine, sorry, that's looking so fuzzy. There we go. I'm just going to use my weeding tool here and start in the upper left corner, and I'll just peel back a bit of that rectangle. Now, if you wanted to have a rectangle outline around your letters, you would want to make two rectangles together. So you'd have an outline there. I didn't necessarily need to have the outline. I just really did that as my way to tell the size of how big or small I wanted my letters to be. And you can do this with any of your cutting machines. So if you have a different cutting machine than the one we're working today, you can certainly do all of these techniques with your different machine. So there we are. So I've got hot peppers is already weeded and ready to go. So I'll take a little piece of Make Market transfer tape and we can just remove that. Now, with the Make Market transfer tape, it does have the grid lines on it. So it makes it super easy to pick up your, piece of vinyl there, your letters and keep your lines in place. Let me just go ahead and trim this down so I don't get it on the wrong thing. So I can just, using my gray lines here on my transfer tape, line that right up on the bottom and take that off. Now, again, you can use your little wedge thing here and roll that down. I know this has a name. It's escaping me right now. If anybody remembers what it's called, and you can drop it in the Q&A, I'll stop calling it a wedge thing. A brayer, thank you. I know what it's called. All right, so once you have your transfer tape on, you go ahead and turn it over, push it again, and you can use your brayer, or if you have a flat ruler, you can use a flat ruler. Even sometimes in a pinch, I'll use a credit card. And then we're going to start peeling back the carrier sheet from our transfer tape. Now, I'm sorry, from our vinyl. This black vinyl happens to be smart vinyl from Cricut. It's the permanent smart vinyl from Cricut. This carrier sheet is really thick. So you'll notice not everything wants to stick down. So what I do is I kind of pull it back and bend the carrier sheet. And as I go, if I come to something that doesn't want to stick down, I just give that nice little fold in there and it makes it stick down a little bit better. So different vinyl will peel off differently from your carrier sheets. So but that trick does always help me. If I get stuck, I can just fold it back and push it down and I'm ready to go. So there's my hot peppers. Oh, I have a little piece there. We got to get that guy off there. They're stuck on my fingers, all these my little, where I weeded out the center of my cuts. So let's get those off of there. Put those on that. Okay, so hot peppers. And now if you want to, you can clean your steak off with a little alcohol and a lint-free cloth. Anytime I'm putting vinyl down, I do like to give myself a clean surface to start with. So I just use a lint-free cloth and some rubbing alcohol. And we'll clean that right off. That just gives you a nice surface to start with, and it makes sure that your vinyl wants to stick down. So we'll just clean that right off, and then you can take your hot peppers. Again, using the lines on the carrier sheet here, we can line this right up and put it down. And then we'll do the reverse of the how we remove the carrier sheet, we will just roll back this transfer tape and that will leave our vinyl on our surface. Now, how cute is that? And let me grab the red that's cut out. So we can unload that mat, and I'll show you how this material will weed and transfer a little bit differently. So this is the everyday, is that too big? I made that too big, guys. Oh, well, I'll still show you how to do it. I don't know, I guess I wasn't doing a good job paying attention to my size. This weeds just as beautifully as any of the other vinyl, but the carrier sheet on the back of this vinyl is not as thick as the smart vinyl. So it will come off much easier than the smart vinyl carrier sheet. So we'll just transfer it onto the carrier sheet. And I'm trying to think if I have a little, I guess I could put it in the bottom of one of my trays, but I'm just going to go ahead and take that right off there. And I'm going to probably make about 5 of these, each one, each type, depending on how big your garden is. So for me, I'll have a couple rows of cherry tomatoes, and I'm also planted extra seeds to gift to some of my gardening friends. So they'll have a little plant to get started with, and it'll be cute to give them a little starter plant with their with a stake in it already. So I apologize, I cut that just too big for my stake sign. So again, we'll just take a transfer sheet, and I'll go ahead and trim this down a little bit. Now, since I'm just using shiny or glossy vinyl, I will just be using standard transfer tape. If you're using a textured type of vinyl, like a glitter vinyl or a chalkboard vinyl, then you'll want to use the strong grip transfer tape to transfer that off, as opposed to the standard grip transfer tape. But this is nice. So if you've ever run into a problem and you're like, why won't that come off as easily? Using the right transfer tape makes a difference. But you can see how this just will roll right off for me. And we'll still do that little fold and crease if we need to, but the carrier sheet's just a bit thinner than the other one. And as you get to this side, if you have I have a little piece of vinyl here, so I don't want this to fall onto that and stick. So we'll just trim that back, and we'll go like this. This is great too if you're doing container planting, to label your little containers with the different types of vegetables and herbs you're putting in your planters. So there we go. That's another way to do your labels. Maybe that's why I have to make a cherry tomatoes container plant. So are there any questions? If you have any questions about the stakes before we move on, please do drop them in the Q&A. Again, I got my stakes from my local gardening center. And then my vinyl, you can use any permanent vinyl along with any standard grip transfer tape to transfer that over. And you saw how I did it in the software. So that's really a very good beginner project. And they really make fun gifts. You can make a whole collection of different tags for a fellow gardener or Mother's Day gift or anything like that. So lots of fun ideas that you can do with those. All right, I'm going to set those aside, and let's talk about our beautiful garden that you're definitely going to want to have you'll want to have like a garden sign for. If you have to put up some sort of barrier to keep the animals out, you might want to have a cute little sign to welcome people to your garden or welcome yourself to the garden. So I selected this Life is a Garden Dig In. It is in the Silhouette Design Studio store. So you can just hop on over to the store. I think it's on sale right now even. But my plaque is I should have shown you my plaque. Let me pull this over. I'm just using a wooden board. I'm leaving it unfinished because I will, when I'm done with it, I'll put a clear coat on it. Just because it is wood and it's going to be outside, and I want it to have a little bit extra resistance to any weather. So this is the size I'm doing. It's 11.8 by 11.8, like all the way around. So it's almost 12 inches. So you can cut your design right to the edge if you feel bold and daring. I made mine a bit smaller. So let me share with you my screen and you'll see how I made mine. I always go a little bit smaller. I don't know why. So this is the Life is a Garden Dig In. Now you could take this type of design and say like, welcome to my garden, and put your name down here. Or so if you have like a specialty in your garden, maybe you're doing extra butterfly, like maybe you're doing bee garden, or you're really looking for those pollinators. You might want to say pollinators welcome, and have a little beehive here. So many fun things you can do. So this is the design that I selected, and we do the same process as we did with our stake signs. So my final design is 10.3 by 10.3. It's all grouped together, so I could just take this outside edge. Oops, it's not grouped together. Let me group everything together. I'll just grab all those different layers and right click on it to group together. So now that those are all together, I can just come in the corner and enlarge it or make it smaller, whatever size round you have. I thought 10.5 inches was about a good size there, or 11 inches for you to cut. Now I do already have this cut, but you do follow the same process. So we'll send it over, select your material, and the drop-down menu really gives you so many different types of vinyls and all the different materials. So if you're using, say, that chalkboard vinyl or frosted vinyl or matte or metallic, you would just choose the right type of vinyl that you're cutting to cut your material out of. If you want to make sure that you have the right settings, let's say it's a new material, you can always do that test cut. And the test cut just does a little square and a rectangle to make sure you have your cut settings all set. So we'd load our material and send that over. In the interest of time, because I know sometimes it takes a while to cut something, I went ahead and did the cut for myself here for us in the workshop. So I want to show you, I'll do a little bit of the weeding here. Now, if I am in the daylight, sometimes I will take my design up to the window so I can see what I need to weed out. Otherwise, I can just take my corner here on the left. I always start in the upper left corner, and I'm just going to peel back my vinyl. And that's just going to cut that or expose what I've cut already. So I'll have one big circle on the outside and then a smaller circle on the inside here. Bring that all the way around. See how easily your material weeds when you have it cut properly? It's like butter. And then we'll do, I have this inside section here. My inside, I'm going to keep the design in there, and then I'll make the tools my negative space. So I have my 3 tools that I went ahead and weeded those. I'm sorry, I welded those 3 designs together. I should have started on the outside, just worked my way inside. . So then you just find your little tools that you want to weed out and see how easy that is. The weeding tool really does make a difference when you're weeding. It just makes it easier to grab that little piece and pull it out. There we go. Sometimes it's even easy. Sorry if my head's in the way. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to, I can see there's like little pieces here. I just need to pull those out as well. There we go. All right. So then we'll just keep weeding around each layer, each level as you go. Again, we've got this nice big piece here. Now, when I get to the letters, I do want to make sure if you have any small pieces, or like if you have anything that's like an I with a dot on the top of it, that you make sure that you leave that on your mat as you're going. Or if something doesn't want to come up quite as easily as you'd like, just use your tool and pop that down just like that. All right, so this is, you just have to weed out the entire design. And I've actually done this with another layer. So I have this all done for us, so we don't have to go back in and see all the little pieces get weeded out. But you would keep weeding through your design. Dig in. So, and then come in and you would weed the center of your letters and everything like that. Once you've done that completely, it'll look like this. And you'll want to add your transfer tape over the top of it. So I've gone ahead and I've completed the weeding and I've added my transfer tape, same as we did with the little signs. So you've got your weeding done, and my transfer tape is right on top. We have to take the carrier sheet off. So again, we'll do the same technique. Now this is bigger. So where I cut that one in half, so it wasn't, didn't fold back on itself, you can do that if you need to. Save the back of your transfer tape because you can reuse your transfer tape over and over again. So we're going to go ahead and do the same process, just turn this over and make sure we're walking that carrier sheet from our transfer tape. And just leaving your design exposed on there, peeling back where you need to. And there we go. All right, so that is perfect. Came off very, very easily and very smooth. Now, here's my trick for you. I grab my parchment paper from my kitchen and you'll just cut out a piece that is as big as you want. It can be a little bit bigger. And then put that over your design. I'm doing this so that I can easily see through my design and position my design on my plaque without having it get stuck before I'm ready. So as you can see, it's very forgiving. Sorry, let me get this lined up a little bit better. I just plopped it on there. The parchment paper is very forgiving. It releases your design very easily. Don't mistakenly use wax paper. Your wax paper will stick to everything and it'll be a big mess that you didn't expect to have. All right, so I'm just going to trim this down a little bit. This is also a great way if you're ever doing markets or anything like that, and you want to have designs prepped and ready to go, but not put on anything. You can use the parchment paper and then keep them in a notebook or something that you're using. Okay, so now that I've got that, since I'm not painting this, if you were painting this or putting any kind of shellac on it, you'd want to go ahead and have it painted and ready to go. I can take my design and center it on my piece. Now, one thing I may do with this is go ahead and trim around my design a little bit so I have a little bit of wiggle room to work with. So I'm just going to use my scissors, and by wiggle room, I mean a way to attach the vinyl to my transfer tape to the round before removing the carrier sheet. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. One other thing you can do if you want to make it easier is if you want to be able to make it a little bit easier to get everything down, is take your parchment paper and sort of create a seam in the back. So we'll take it and just slice it, fold it back like that. See how I just did like 2 inches back, and then I'm just going to cut that right here. This way I can release a portion of my design at a time and not release the whole design at one time. Okay, so we'll just line that right back up. You guys excited? I'm excited. I love it when these things work out. Okay, so we can eyeball this on here, or I can use my ruler and make sure I've got it kind of centered on there because I've got my lines on my transfer tape. So let's get that lined up on there. Okay, so that looks like that's lined up there, lined up perfectly there, and we're lined up nicely here. So sometimes too, what I would do is I would take my circle, my wood piece, and create a template out of a piece of cardstock, just so I know exactly where the center of my design is. And then I would be able to just really easily find that center and make sure everything is centered on there. If I'm just doing it for myself, I will, I just kind of eyeball it on there. So I'm not super worried about, you know, is it perfectly in the center? This would also be great if you're stenciling your design or anything like that. So like if you're going to lay down a stencil and then put paint on it or something. Now use your packing tape or masking tape and adhere, just put a little bit on the sides here to keep your design down. So at the top, we have that like little half piece there. And I do also have to be a little careful because I have my little design on the top here, which I think I'm off center. Let me go back here. So I've got to find the center because my piece has this little top here. So the center of my design needs to be right there. Okay, let's get that there. Now I'm going to do it. Let's tape that down so it doesn't move on me. Okay, that way I know right where I need to have my center be. So I'm going to hang it up outside. It's going to be right there. Right up there. Okay, you see the whole, I want to make sure you see the whole circle. There we go. Okay, so now I know right where my center is going to be. I'm going to put this back on, line that up again onto my center. Yep, perfect. Let's make sure we're not crooked here. Looks good. What do you guys think? We're in the center there. Okay, so I'll put my painter's tape down. Then I can put your hand over your design, peel back, and we're just going to remove that first bit of the parchment paper, that first top piece, and adhere your vinyl down that way. So once you have that piece down, your vinyl is going to stay in place. It's not going to wiggle on you. You don't have to fight with a whole bunch of different, with like a, you know, trying to have the backing off of it and put it down. So this part of your design is not stuck down yet. So if you had to, you could, you know, kind of wiggle it around a little bit if you needed to. If it didn't look right to you, you can just kind of wiggle it a little bit. And just by having that piece down, you still have all this that isn't down. So then you just flip that up and remove the parchment paper. And as you're removing the parchment paper, you put your design down. I like to take a ruler or a larger flat surface and kind of push along the design as I'm going to make sure it goes down as smooth as possible. I'm going to eliminate any air bubbles. And I think using the parchment paper for me has really helped to eliminate air bubbles in my process. Let's use our brayer again. And we're going to run that over our sign. Now, again, like I mentioned, you could stencil this if you wanted to. You could just spray paint the edge of it and then remove your vinyl, or just leave your vinyl. And I'm going to be putting on a like I said, a layer of decoupage. I mean, not decoupage, Mod Podge. Okay, so again, we're just going to make sure our vinyl's down. Feel across your vinyl, make sure there's no bubbles in there. If there's any bubbles, you remove those bubbles as you go. And then we're just going to be taking this down like this. It's funny on the angle. There we go. I usually work my transfer tape off kind of like at a 45-degree angle, just to make sure it all comes off. And then you can take your backing tape again, put that down. And even though this is in a circle, I'll be able to use this material again on another project. So save your transfer tape until it doesn't have any stick left in it. When you can't pick anything up with it, then you know, okay, it's done. And it's time to replace it. But otherwise, you can just keep reusing this until, again, it doesn't have any stick on it. So I'm just gonna get that down smooth on this paper here. And then there's my little garden sign. Ready to go. Not fun? All right, so if we can go back to the main camera, I have one more project I can show. And I mean, it's just a kind of a show and tell type of project, but you know, if you're doing little signs like this, your wood signs, I would, since it's going outside, I'm going to put that protective on it. You could maybe do a spray shellac if you wanted to, or I'll use Mod Podge on it. Gotta love the old Mod Podge. So one other thing to share with you is if you're doing potted plants, you could always use your vinyl and do a design on your potted plant. So this was our dog who passed away, and we had a plant for him. And my kids did little stones that they put tucked in the plant for him. So, you know, just kind of keep thinking about other ideas of like, what else can you put the vinyl on? This happens to be an indoor plant, which we sometimes will put outside, but not always. And then next week, I think next Thursday or maybe Monday, we have another garden class where we'll be doing some sublimation projects. So if you're interested in learning how to use sublimation, that's going to be another fun project to do for outdoor projects too. So that was my last little thing. And then well, are we in April? We're almost in April. We'll have, like I said, I love the garden and doing gardening. We did, a fabric decoupage project is coming up in April in the workshops. So be sure to check that one out. If your Michaels doesn't have fabric yet, it is coming. So it's really fun, all the different things you can do with the fabric. If there were, we have a couple minutes for any Q&A. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them about working in your garden indoors or outdoors. We didn't really do any iron-on projects, but with your silhouette, you can cut out iron-on vinyl as well and make a t-shirt or make an apron for a favorite gardener. You could decorate their little garden pail or something like that if you wanted to. So lots of fun things you can do for your favorite gardener. One other thing I kind of intended to show too is a journal. So if you're getting into gardening or you've been gardening for years, you know that gardening is a growing and learning process. It's not just for your fruits and vegetables and herbs, but for yourself. So every year, I'm learning something new about my garden and how I plant things seasonally, or, you know, like this year, I'm really excited to be planting variety of vegetables together with flowers to ward off insects and things like that. So like my tomato garden will have marigolds in it, which are great for keeping insects away from your plants. I knew they were great for keeping stink bugs away, but I didn't know it worked for other insects. So that was kind of a learning process for me. And adding garlic to your tomato bed was another trick I'm going to try. So I do document all of that in a gardening journal that I update every year. And it's great to be able to go back and look at that. So you could kind of put something, a little fun saying on your journal. And if you're just starting your journey, it's a great way to do it. Or if you have kids that you're getting into gardening, gardening is such a fun way to connect with your kids and guide. And you don't even have to talk, just being in the garden is a really great place. But if you have young children, you may want to, you just thought, I think I just dropped. Okay. If you have young children, you may want to have them do a journal and sketch things out in the garden. So lots of fun ways to work in your garden. I'm excited to see what you guys create. I hope you'll share with Michael's on your social media page on how your garden is growing. I'd love to see it. I think that's all I have tonight.